are literally shaping the planet.
Purpose is the only pathway to a regenerative future.
We have a choice to stay with the status quo or to change.
What is the point of trying to be just resilient when we can actually innovate?
Do you have slides today, Michael?
This is my slide, man. It's all I got. I'm sorry. I apologize to your audience. That's my slide.
All right,
Hey, Anastasia, KP, and the rest of the team, congratulations. Really terrific conference. Great event as always. I've been, I think, a part of every one that you've done, and you keep upping your game, keeps getting better and better with greater content and more thoughtful ideas, and I'm thrilled to be a part of it.
Thanks, Michael. And honestly, I would say we've made better and better friends every year, so we can rope guys like you in.
Dude, I was there when we had no friends. What do you mean?
It is funny, just hearing Rob Otani speak, and me and Rob go way back. Just definitely some new friends at the conference this year, but definitely known Rob for a while. In our very first summit, Tom Scarangello, the CEO of Thornton Thomas, said he came down maybe to a room of 20 people. But gave him a great dinner to make up for the only 20 people in the room. But it's interesting how it evolves. Actually, I just tweeted something. I was interviewed a few years ago by this journalist, asked me, KP, if you were given $500 million, what would you do with it to change the built environment and innovation?
Great.
And I said, I'd take half of it and recruit away all the Rob Otanis and the Alan Wayhas and get them out of industry, just pull them all away.
Are they that expensive? They make that much money?
They should be. They should be. I mean, look, unfortunately in architecture and engineering, they get you with this idea that you're shaping the world and money's for real estate developers, not for us.
Right.
They talk us into that narrative, unfortunately. But so I said, I was like, we hire all the best people from industry, and then we take the rest of the money and we give them 5 years. And we say, look, in 5 years, we don't want you to transform. We want you to start over. And in the meantime, since we've sucked all that great talent out of all these companies, they just have to wait on us. They have no choice because they can't even turn on their computers without us. So, so that's my big strategy. So anyone with an extra $500 million sitting in their pocket, I have a master plan.
Or we could just give it all away. I was reading about that entrepreneur. I forget his name. I should know his name. Jeff
Bezos?
No, the guy just his dying wish was to die broke.
Oh, the guy that started the duty-free stores.
Yes, and they just announced that he gave away everything.
Yeah.
$8 billion or some, I don't know, whatever the number was. I mean,
Chuck Feeney.
Yes. Very good. Very good. We could also do that.
Yeah, we can also ask them.
Million.
So cool. So it's we stay in touch. So I think we're generally up to date with each other, and I think we both have seen just kind of what's been a great season of change in our industry and entrepreneurship. Get real, right? It's gotten real, and entrepreneurs aren't just out there raising all kinds of money willy-nilly, and customers aren't just saying, yeah, sure, here's $1 million. Let's do a pilot project. Let's figure it out. What I would say is the idea of let's go spend money to innovate. And if the worst case is we'll learn something together, those conversations aren't happening that much right now. It's a little bit like show me ROI. So this is where things have gotten real, right? I mean,
I think that's a great sort of way to characterize what's happening now, KP. And again, you and I, we do talk a lot, and I appreciate spending some time with you today. I think we were living in an environment pre-COVID that was, it was sort of a nice to have. It was cool. It was fun. It was exciting. And then all of a sudden, like you said so eloquently, it got real. And what does that mean? Failures got real and success got real. So there's some companies that, as a result of this, are really, as you know, better than I probably, are really scaling and are really growing and finally getting some traction because they're a must-have, and others that are, just not able to survive, and there's been some failures. So I think that's a great way to characterize where we are. It got real. Yeah. That's
What
good.
do you think? How do you think? I've got my opinions clearly, but how do you think that's translated to what you're hearing out of the venture capital firms in terms of their ability to think about risk and think about investing in these startups and sizing and this idea of like competing for a deal, so to speak, which I've always opted out of, but other people do. So I mean, what are you hearing from my peer group out there?
Well, we talked about this just, I think, probably last week. I think that, if your LPs are real estate people, companies, I think it's very challenging to raise money, honestly, and to deploy it because there's so much sort of carnage and challenges out there in the real estate industry. I mean, I was talking with a friend the other day that's an active investor in the space and sitting on a big hotel portfolio. Well, they're not investing in this kind of space anymore. But, I think one of the things that Shadow's done really well is you've got a very diversified, angel network that's not beholden to real estate markets. That's investing. And so I think the angel market is one I would want to be in right now in early stage. I think later stage, a lot of capital is sitting on the sidelines right now.
Mm-hmm. What do you see, what are you seeing out of entrepreneurs now? Like, how do you see them moving differently in terms of not just spend, but just, I would say the energy, right? The energy has shifted in terms of how they're spending their time. For context, there's a startup that I've been part of from day one called OneTrust, and he spoke last year at the conference. And when he first started, he was going to go join a co-working space and do all this stuff. And I was like, look, you do not go to those places. You go to your basement, you hire coders, and you don't come up for air until you've got a product, right? There's zero reason to be at events and everything. And it's funny because he took it to the extreme. The first event he attended was when he got the E&Y Entrepreneur of the Year. But he refused to do it, and he did. He stayed heads down. And I've always questioned all these entrepreneurs that are on every stage, everywhere. And I'm like, when are you building a company? When are you writing code? When are you doing the work of building? Are you seeing a shift in that where people are saying, no, I gotta get to work, man. I can't come and talk at Shadow Summit.
Well, everybody needs to come talk at Shadow Summit. I think that, again, to your analogy, it got real. I think it's real now. I think one of the things that sort of frustrated me over the last, 6, 7, 8 years was, capital was flowing so plentiful that, if you had an idea, you could probably raise money based on the idea, the hustle. If you wore skinny jeans and, you looked good and you had the part and you said the right words, and you came out of the right environment, you could raise money. Now, shit's got real, like you said. So I think now we're really, really starting to see the great entrepreneurs either enter and rise. I mean, it's hard as hell. You have to be crazy to get into this, to do this. I mean, they don't call it 9 to 5. They call it, entrepreneurialism for a reason. And I think those that went head first into this tsunami are the ones that now you start to see emerge in stronger positions. And I think their companies are starting to grow as a result. But, it's like we've talked. I mean, being an entrepreneur is not for everybody. And I think, this is the time where it's going to weed out a lot of those people what you described that shouldn't have been here in the first place, because either they didn't have the hustle, they didn't understand the sacrifice, they didn't know that, there are no days off. It's 7 days a week. It's 20 hours a day. I mean, I'm still grinding. It's 30 years down the road for me. I mean, I used to be as handsome as you. Now look at me. I mean, it's and very few people should be doing this. And I think right now we're seeing the real entrepreneurs rise to the occasion.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. Having been through a couple of cycles. We saw this with the .com, after the .com, all the people that thought they were entrepreneurs tried to go back and get into corporate and get a job and all that. But, I talk about it in my book, which is now 3 years old, but, once you become an entrepreneur, you can't really unring that bell. Mm-hmm. And you can go get that corporate job and get paid and take care of your basics. But basically, you're dying on the inside a little bit every day. And at some point you have to come back out. At some point, you just can't. And I always tell people, like, have a lot of conversations with your friends, your family, your love, like explaining, like, I want to go do this entrepreneurial thing, because it's a bigger decision than people really think about. Think of it as, they think, oh, if I have a customer and I got some code, I can go be an entrepreneur. But I think there's very few people, entrepreneurs on this call that would ever think about going back to, working at a company, as a job. So it was interesting that people went and did their corporate thing, and then they showed up, once things got a little bit more clear, they showed back up. And the second wave and the third wave, a lot of those folks did pretty well. I think you got to get punched in the face a few times, and then you figure out, like, I'm not a technical person from like how I think about sports. I just got to know that if I get hit a few times, and by the third time I know to duck. Right. But I'm not great at anticipating. I think as an entrepreneur, like, you don't know how to duck. You just have to get hit in the face often enough that then you just naturally duck.
Well, yeah, I think that's right, KP. I think also, a lot of times, like, I'll get calls, and I know you do as well, from first-time entrepreneurs, and they have an idea, and they'll ask me for advice. And what I honestly try and do is talk them out of it. I really, really do. And I tell them, listen, it's going to be 100 times harder than you think it is. If you're starting out this journey because you want to make a lot of money, go back home. Don't do it, because that's not why you should be doing it. You should be doing it because you have a passion. You love what you do. You want to fix something that you think is broken, or you see an opportunity. And most of them underestimate how long it takes, how hard it is, how lonely the journey is. There's a lot of stuff that I've listened to just in terms of mental health and the challenges that being an entrepreneur have on your mental well-being. I mean, because it's every day you're being drowned out by the naysayers, people who think that your idea sucks, and you look at the bank account and it's dwindling, and adoption's not happening, and the market's not reacting. Well, where do you go? Where do you turn? You got to look inward, and you got to have that inside of you, that something extra that says, I'm just going to keep going. And, I'll, like you said, I'll just get up every time I get knocked down. And, like you and I were talking the other day about grit. I think that's a huge part of it. I think, when I look at, like, inspiration, I actually don't, there's the Bezoses of the world, and, the Elon Musk those aren't the ones that really inspire me day to day. They're people most people never heard of. They're like local entrepreneurs, small businesses that have been, whether it's a restaurant or whether it's something in the arts or humanities, and they just have that ability to just keep going with optimism. And that's the magic secret formula. I don't know how to teach it. I'm sure you do. I don't know you've written about it. I don't know how to describe it other than there's something special. So the first thing I say to people is, you shouldn't do it. And if I could convince you not to do it, then you really shouldn't have done it. So,
it's interesting you say that, like, this idea, like, that it's easy, that, I've had people over the years come up to me, oh my gosh, you're in business for yourself. It must be great to not have a boss. And it's like, clearly you've not been through this. Last year, a friend of ours did a keynote, a guy named Michael Coles, and his book and his talk was all about grit. And he started the Great American Cookie Company.
Oh, there you go. Oh, I remember he was at your event. Right. He had the book out. Yep.
And it was interesting. Like, there's a lot of us that have been through a couple of cycles. They're like, man, that was just a great story. Love it. I like all those things. Right. And then I had some of the other folks, like, he was in the cookie business.
Right.
Like, it doesn't apply to me. Like, that's not how it is. Like, and just kind of dismissed like his whole idea of, like, it takes a lot of grit.
Yeah.
And just dismissing it all. Like, well, he just, he wasn't planned well enough. He didn't, how hard could it have been? I'm building complex things. And it's like, yeah, man, like, one day you might find out, one day you might find out.
It's why, like, this, where, I listen to, I mean, I really consider myself a student of the entrepreneurial game. I don't hold myself up, KP, as somebody who's done it, who knows how to do it. I still feel like I'm faking it till I make it. I'm 56 and I'm getting my ass kicked every day, but I'm learning every day and I'm passionate every day about what I do. And I'd never go back and do things differently. I just wouldn't. There are easier ways to make money. There are easier ways to live a more balanced life. But you know what? For me, this is what I do. My family, thankfully, is very supportive, as well as my friends. And but again, it's like, and you see this more than me. It's like when I see those decks, and someone sends you a deck, and I always say, "Show me what you got. What are you looking to do?" And they got that hockey stick, and you're like, "Man, this person doesn't get it. Don't tell me how you're showing me how you think it's going to be so easy. Tell me how it's going to be so hard, and then what you're going to do to overcome it." Right. And I think, like, we talk about mistakes, and I think that hubris is the biggest mistake I've seen every entrepreneur go down. And we're seeing a few in our industry that'll go down. We know a few that have already failed. And it's that hubris that, I got all the answers, a cult of personality around me. I'm the entrepreneur. I'm the founder. I say bullshit, right? No, it's about being able to listen, not just to people, to the marketplace that says, that's not working. Try that. Listen to data, listen to people. Surround yourself with people who are, which is very easy in my case, far smarter than you. Like, I know my strengths. They're not that many. I know what I'm not good at. So my job every day is find people who can check all those boxes that I can't. And I think that's what a lot of successful entrepreneurs do. And you look at, like, in our industry, you see the ones that have really scaled. And I could tell you who those founders have all those qualities in common. They're humble. They've got a work ethic and a commitment that's just unprecedented. They're constantly learning and trying to grow, and they're self-critical, and they put the work ethic in, right? So I love it. I mean, I honestly, as I said, I get most of my inspiration from people outside of business, from whether it's from Pollock to Prince. It's like people that are constantly creating with blank canvases, taking a risk, putting themselves out there, going where it's unknown, and just a perpetual learner, man. That's what excites me.
It's really interesting. Like, I was at South by Southwest several years ago, and I was at dinner with Stuart Butterfield of Slack. And I kid you not, he did not pick his head up to barely talk or eat. He had his laptop out, and he was banging out code. He was working the entire dinner.
Seems to have paid off.
And he picked his head up for a second just to kind of say hey to everybody, and then went back down, right? And then was like eating. And I thought it was fascinating because everybody's like, "Oh my God, that's so rude." I was like, "No, like, I get it. Like I get that." And this whole idea of like, "Oh, you have to go out and like no, I'm working on my company," like a kind of thing. And I was like, I kind of appreciated it that he was prioritizing whatever. I guess he had a commit that he had to make, so he was working on it over dinner to not let his team down. And I thought that was pretty cool. But it's interesting. I was so fortunate. Like several years ago, I was in Silicon Valley working on a couple things out there, and I was contemplating VC. And I was fortunate to have lunch with Don Valentine, the late Don Valentine. And he looked at me. He's like, "KP, like, if you want to own a sports team, be an entrepreneur. If you're intellectually curious and you want to work with cool people and make a couple bucks along the way, be a venture capitalist." Because there's no VCs that own sports teams. Like that's not a thing. It's the entrepreneurs that own sports teams. But it's interesting. You get that feedback and you're like, "Oh, okay, like, that's fair." But I think it comes back to that why. Like, why are you being an entrepreneur? And I see some wild entrepreneurs, both the work I do locally and everything else, where they're just so mission oriented, which I appreciate. Like, they're trying to solve this massive problem, but the idea of celebrating a venture capital round is just a weird dynamic coming from the entrepreneurial side. Like, oh, you just celebrated that you got a round and you got diluted, and versus celebrating a new customer. Like, there's other things that go on. And it's interesting. In the 90s, we got really focused on path to profitability. It was all about, if we don't do this next initiative, can we still be profitable? Because if we can, then we kind of carve our own future. And this last cycle, like I would say things like profitability, Matt Ullman, our CTO, me and him are probably most critical of, like, show us a method. Like if the world falls apart, how are you still going to survive?
Exactly.
Because it's not a hockey stick curve, right? It's not going to, and people would look at us funny, like we were just crazy.
Right.
Like, what VCs talk about profitability? And I'm like, those of us that have built companies.
Well, that's why, again, I think, KP, to your earlier comments about, it got real. Like, I think for a decade, there was this celebrity culture around entrepreneurs and venture.
Like Adam Newman?
What's that?
Adam Newman?
Yeah, and Adam Newman, they would put, Zuckerberg. I mean, again, Zuckerberg created great wealth, built something extraordinary, but I don't know that we should be idolizing people based on how much money they raised or how much money they've made. I think we should be idolizing people that are, with grit and determination, building products and solutions and services that have meaning and that, offer value to both their investors and their customers. I mean, listen, I'm more impressed with the restaurateur down the street from my house in my little town who quickly pivoted and built all this outdoor dining and who's crushing it right now, right? Like, that's who inspires me. Like, when everybody else was sitting there going, oh, everything's so bad. This kid just figured it out. And that's what entrepreneurialism is to me. That's what inspires me. That's why I honestly, I feel like even after all these years and all the things that I've tried to build and stay focused on, and the challenge I've never had a bad day at work. I mean, I've had shit happen to me. I got partners that have turned out to be, whatever, and I've had things fall down and marketplaces collapse, but still wake up every day with a smile on my face, loving what I do, and I won't ever change a thing about it.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Like we get the great opportunity to meet lots of interesting people. Not always good people, but definitely interesting people. For some reason, the most interesting people make their way to the front of the line. When I was running Georgia Tech's incubator, they actually had to file restraining orders against 2 entrepreneurs because they were very interesting. But it's funny. It's funny you talk about this cult of personality thing with entrepreneurs. Me and Matt look at decks all the time, and the minute it's too polished, we're suspicious. The minute they have their pitch down too well, we're suspicious.
Yeah.
And all we do is we're like, what problem are you solving? Why does anyone give a damn? And if you win, who loses? That's all I want to know.
That's great.
And they're like, well, no, Techstars told us. I'm like, Techstars is garbage. Don't listen to them. But like, they've never built anything. So it's one of those, like, we had these conversations with people, and they've been trained in this system, right? They're playing the game. They're using the system. And I think that's why we always tend to resonate towards the entrepreneurs that are not great at the system.
Right.
Because the system's broke.
Yeah. That's why I love what you and Matt and the crew are doing, because, I mean, I would encourage every founder, early stage, to come into Shadow, to connect with you guys and gals, and be part of your ecosystem. Because, like you said, man, that should be your tagline. It got real, and it's real, right? And I think but I do feel that, like, having a sophisticated, accomplished people like you and the team around early stage entrepreneurs is very important. Like, I think you guys provide, yes, capital, of course, but it's about the mentorship. And I think that's the other part about listening, about surround yourself with people that'll be hypercritical, but will support you, but, want to challenge your thesis and challenge your assumptions and help you to think about things differently. I mean, I don't think I've ever met an entrepreneur that, okay, that's freaky. Okay, my Sonos just went off. I have no idea why. I'm in this.
I did it to mess with you.
I'm here all by myself, so I don't know what. I don't think I've ever met an entrepreneur who finished where they started. Have you?
Not at all. It's the only constant is the change. It's funny you say that, right? So, like, Matt and I have been together for a long time. Anastasia and I have been together forever.
Yeah, that's terrific.
And whenever they interview new people, they're like, well, KP's crazy, right? Like, that's where they start. Like, he's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, let's get that out of the way.
Yeah.
And what they learn is that I'm not really that. It's just part of being just an entrepreneur. It's the pivoting and the moving, and that if you can't if you get stuck on this, like, well, you keep changing your mind. I'm like, did I change my mind, or did I get more information in different things? And am I constantly trying to find the path of least resistance? There's this one nugget I've given entrepreneurs lately is great entrepreneurs, which I'm not there yet, know the difference between friction and an immovable object. And once you get there, you're unstoppable. But you only have so much energy and so much energy to push out, and you only have so many resources. And if you're spending all your time on that immovable object, you're out by the time you get there.
Right. That's great. That's really great. Yeah. Well, I'm obviously I'm a fan. So,
well, that's why we had you on.
I don't know. I'm just, I
was hoping to fight with you, like, about something.
Nah.
Is there anything I can pick a fight with you on?
No, you'll win. I'm too passive. No, not really anything. Tell me, let me ask you though, what are you most excited about sort of foreshadow for the rest of this year? Let's look at 2020. Obviously, it's been a really challenging year for a lot of us, for everybody, but therein lies the opportunity. Like, with CREtech, I mean, we took it on the chin, just like a lot of other businesses, but, we've repositioned and moved into other areas. And I couldn't be more excited about the future. Tell me about Shadow's future. Yeah.
So I think, it's interesting. I think about like the seasons of a market, right? In terms of how you think about what's popular, what's not popular. What I'm most excited about is we're doing about 2 deals a month now. We're busy, right? We're very busy. We're doing great deals, and we're doing good deals with good entrepreneurs that coachable and are building real technology. And some days kind of scare the shit out of me. Like, I want my entrepreneurs to like, are you doing what? Are we allowed to do that? Like, I want a little bit of that, right? And it's kind of a good season for us because we're very pragmatic. Like, we're just very nuts and bolts about things. And so we don't do well with, the folks that are wearing skinny jeans and up on stage and, everybody's getting in on this deal. I'm like, well, if everybody's going left, I'm going right. Like, there's a reason, right? And so, last year we didn't do any deals. And I was like, man, I got called to task at the end of the year by our LPs and all, saying, KP, like, we didn't give you money to hang out with it. Like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I can't pragmatically find the deals that make sense. And when I do, all the nutcases are overvaluing them. Like, I don't know what they're thinking. And I just don't see it there. And I think, we're so pragmatic and like logical in our thinking. And people say, well, they ask me things like, do you bet on the horse or do you bet on the jockey? I'm like, I want to own the track. Like, it's like, what are you talking about? And, we're very, like, we're prolific about that. Unfair advantage. We're going to invest in companies that, we'll have an unfair advantage because we're involved, because we're going to hack the market. We're going to do whatever it takes. So it was tough for us from a seasonal perspective last year, with all the hype and this cult of personality and people saying, oh, I'll let you in on this deal. I'm like, what? Like, I'll let you in on a deal. Like, I don't care about that. And so the market shifted to where I think our sweet spot of skill sets are. Like, we're pragmatic. We love running valuation models. People think we're wasting our time. We do so much primary research to really understand what's going on. And like, the last part of the equation is, do we like this person? Like, we know the market, and we want to go understand all of it. And I think we're in a season that is just really good for us, right? This is a good spot for us culturally. Yeah, where we've been shaking our heads a lot over the last couple of years.
That's great, man. I couldn't be more excited for your future and what you're doing. And I think the ecosystem is the big winner. Having Shadow, get more active this year, because it's, as you said, it got real. And I think I'll just leave you with this last point, because I know you guys are behind schedule, and who wants to hear from me? But I think the biggest lesson that I've learned probably over the last phase of this journey that I'm on, which I hopefully will never stop, is to really surround yourself with people that you like, that you respect, and that you trust, that you want to be in the foxhole with, you want to climb those stairs in that burning building with, because, I think in the past I was not, so focused on the character and the quality of the people that I worked with, and I would look at a resume, and I would look at a skill set or a recommendation, and I was in haste always, and I'd say, yeah, come on, let's go. And then you realize, how did I miss that? And so I think my last bit of advice, again, these are all lessons learned, is really look in the eyes of the people that you're going to surround yourself with and make sure, more than skills, more than capital, more than anything, who they are as humans. Because those are the people that'll figure it out with you, that'll stick by you, that'll be, your companion on these really, really tough journeys. And I think that's what grit is also about, that there's got to be some kind of character. There's no shortcuts, there's no cheating, there's no screwing around, there's no hurting anybody. It's just about, decency. And I think that's often got lost in that cult of personality, because I would sit there and see the quote entrepreneur who raised the most money or, had whatever sort of, pedigree, and they would just shit on people. And I recoil on that when I see that. And so the hard lesson for me was, I think in the last phase of this journey, the most recent one, was pick and choose your friends and the people you work with really, really carefully. Because at some point when it's crunch time, characters get revealed. So, and I know you've been really great with that too. With your team is exceptional. I mean, everybody I deal with at Shadow, Anastasia, the whole crew, these are good people, right? And that's your brand. So anyway, enough of the soapbox. That's my last.
Thanks, man.
All right, man. Great seeing you. Great being with you. Good luck, okay, with the rest of the event. Take care. Thanks.